Wait,
Ready.
cool. Take it away.
Okay. Hey everyone, this is Alana, the product designer for authorization. Today I will be going through how we've iterated towards providing supplemental context in the member area specific to roles and permissions. And through this, I'll also highlight the collaboration with Tenant Scale. I did slides, but don't worry, this is not very formal. It's just my way of sort of walking through all of the work that we've done so far. I also wanted to give an overview and introduction here of the jobs to be done that authorization group is focused on. So we have 3 job performers. We have the access maintainer that maintains access policies, the provisioner that provisions access rights. So think of it as the person that is assigning role. And then the access requester, which is sort of the end user of that access provisioner. They are the ones that is requesting access to the tools available on GitLab. For this scope of work, we were focused on the access provisioner and the access requester. I think it's also relevant to set the context of the feature that we've been working on in the past year to mature our category of permissions. What you're looking at here is the custom role creation form, where if you are an ultimate customer, you can create a role by naming it and also defining a predefined set of permissions by choosing a default role. And then on top of that, adding your customized permissions. One thing I'll note here is that its location, the creation of a custom role is located in the settings for top group for SaaS, and then in the admin area for self-manage. So there's visibility here in terms of who can actually access the creation, as well as the list of custom roles that have been created and the specific permissions that are configured within that custom role. So that is only limited to the group owner and the administrator. Oops, typo here. So once a custom role is created, it can now be assigned in the member area. And the next chunk of slides will go through how we iterated what that looks like in terms of assigning a custom role. This view is the MVC that our team implemented prior to having a designer resource. I think one of the problem areas and challenges that I took on when I first started was the scalability of how a custom role looks like when it's assigned to a member. If you're looking at Chloe Williams here, they are assigned a custom role called Incident Manager from the dropdown. And every single permission that has been added in that custom role is listed as a badge. So the biggest challenge is its scalability. Right now we have 30 or so permissions that you can add to a custom role. So we would, if we maintain this UI, it would skew the row height, potentially taking up the whole page. So the first iteration that we did after the MVC was to first tackle that scale issue. In this change, we removed the permissions that are assigned in badge and instead opted to indicate that this is a custom role, a detail that actually tested well with users in terms of looking at the list of members and seeing which users have been assigned a custom role. We also updated the dropdown so that it is sectioned between the default roles that we have available as well as the custom roles that have been created. And in this change, we heavily leveraged the description. So you'll find the description is detailed here as well as there's a tooltip here. One thing that leveraging the description is challenged by is that this is actually heavily relying on the access maintainer to actually indicate a helpful description. And I think while this design solves for that scale issue, what it doesn't do well actually is listing out the permission details that was previously listed here. So for our next iteration, we explored how do we actually give that detailed context to not just the users that can access the settings area, but all users. We explored a few options that I've outlined here, one of which is the view-only state. But this still presents a problem for the access provisioner who is actually managing that member's role in the member page. So they would have to switch context between the member page as well as the settings area. We also explored having a modal that could be triggered from the member area, but this also presents some scale issues when we think about an organization with many custom roles created. What we ended up landing on is the drawer interaction, which we felt like provided us the most sort of area to provide a supplemental information needed to view role and permission detail. This also aligns with the efforts in working with Mike and understanding some of the things that Tenant Scale wanted to provide in the member area in terms of membership. This also aligns with their effort and was very much inspired by some of his ideas. We actually implemented this, so I'd like to show you how version 2 looks like in the product. Here is a test group that is on Ultimate, and what you're seeing is the member page. So from here, you can click on a custom role or any role for that matter, and view all the details, that is the description, the permissions, the base role, and all of the additional permissions that have been added into this role. You can also choose a different role, and the drawer feeds back that information of that role that you've selected, and then you can update the role from here. I also linked the issue if you wanted to dig into more details about the process to which we came up with this solution. Here, what's next? Mike and I are working closely in terms of adding more details from the member table into this drawer. We are looking to move the access expiration input into the drawer and be able to take advantage of the same interaction. We also want to change it so that instead of clicking role to bring up the drawer, the whole entire row is clickable. So it will be about the entire member details instead of specific to the role. And I think that's all I wanted to cover. If you have any sort of feedback or ideas of what you think could fit into this new drawer interaction, please let myself or Mike know. I've also linked out the issue as well as the Figma and the solution validation that we have in our current work. I added 2 questions to the group here, which is essentially this sort of the themes of what I was tackling in the scope of work. So how have you solved for visibility needs for your areas wherein there are some things that only exist in settings, but it's relevant to all users? And then past examples of stage group collaboration that has worked well for you. I'm gonna stop sharing.
Awesome. It's coming along. It's really nice to see roles getting some love. Does anyone have any questions or answers to Alana's prompts?
Could you say a little bit more about this question? How have you solved for visibility needs for areas existing only in settings? Is that like, I mean, I think there are places where I've referenced, you know, you have to go to settings to do this. I think maybe they were just mock-ups, but I think on the security, I don't know. I don't know. I don't really think that there are places maybe that that I'm referencing settings. I know that we tend to, if you don't have permissions for something, our default communication mode there is it just doesn't show up rather than showing it as disabled and then putting some kind of like tooltip or explanation that, you know, this isn't available because you don't have permissions, contact your project administrator. I'm just thinking out loud here. I don't know if that's along the lines of what kind of conversation you were hoping to have here, but I guess TLDR, yeah, if somebody doesn't have permissions to something, it just doesn't show up for them.
Yeah, from our authorization side, we've seen some requests from customers, and they're kind of specific to role. I think I've connected with Tim here in terms of having a billing specific role wherein it accesses billing areas in settings, but not anything else. So that's kind of in the line, I guess, of what I'm hoping to gather.
Chad, you have a comment, question? I could fill in if you want to voice it.
Yeah, it's I don't know, not an extraordinarily revolutionary thing, but like I really like the use of the side drawer pattern for explaining these. I know from seeing kind of like your audit of how all of this works, these roles are like can get really confusing and they're like custom to like the group or like the instance or whatever. So it almost feels like a nice way of almost accessing internal documentation about the way that the team structure works. But I like the
Right.
way you laid it out as well. I think it gives you the information that you need to make that decision in the place where you're trying to like decide about it without having to like open a bunch of things in other tabs or like go read our documentation about what access to certain things means. Like that's nice.
Yeah, or even like jump to another part or another group or a project to find that and then go back to where you needed that information to then complete your workflow.
Mhm.
Cool. I also like your use of jobs to be done. Do you find that aspect to be helpful, using jobs to help move this forward?
Yeah, I will say in terms of focusing on the scope and who we're actually solving for, like when I'm designing or thinking about the problem, it's super helpful to have that framework. And I also find it helpful when communicating to my team or maybe to other cross-stage collaborators.
Cool. Always happy to hear that. Anyone else have any questions, comments, great thoughts?
I'll just jump in and say thank you for working on this. This has been fantastic collaboration, and just to build on that jobs to be done. What I've been most impressed about is being able to simultaneously solve the tenant scale jobs to be done and the auth ones, and combining those together and getting all that done with one cohesive design that we could have very easily missed this and fought each other for months, and the way
Yeah,
you brought this together has been really impressive. So thank you.
really, thank you.
All right.
Yeah, I was
Well,
gonna say,
oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I appreciated you starting with jobs to be done and the different personas. That was really helpful to have that context up front. So thanks for that.
Very quick question. What is the process, Ilana, for a custom base role? So it actually sounds a little bit of an oxymoron, but I'm more thinking about having a specific or having specific roles. I know that we've spoken about this, maybe a billing role, maybe even an AI admin role, where we're not giving everybody access to everything, but very kind of specific, individualized permissions. I'm just wondering about the process by which you would probably validate that internally as a team.
That's a good question. Right now, we're taking requests around what permissions you'd like to customize. And I know for your use case, Tim, it's more about like a role that can be specific to billing. So I think those two follow two different process. We have an issue, a feedback issue, and a custom permissions request issue whereby people can bring their use case and request for a custom permission to be added as part of the list where you can add permissions. But for adding a new role, we're only kind of trying to understand what that process will look like via the plan role. And from what I'm seeing, it's collaborating closely with the group that is requesting it, and then sort of understanding which team will implement it from there. It seems the validation piece, though, relies on that group that's requesting the role, the specific role. So I don't know if that helps, but I can get a little bit more clarity from my product manager and team and can send you a Slack after this.
No, that really helps. Thank you. And just to piggyback off of Mike, a really good collaboration, especially I know that we're going to be talking about the user list when we get to organizations. Wink, wink, Mike. So looking forward to collaborating further on that as we look at provisioning and so forth. So thank you for sharing.
Cool, thank you.
All right. Looks like we have run the well dry. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Alana. Awesome presentation.